Welcome to your own deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at pharmaceuticals. It's like a quiz show,
Oh.
but you win knowledge instead of a car.
All right. I like it.
Yeah. So basically, we're going to be looking at FDA guidelines,
Okay.
academic papers
Mhm.
about this thing called mutagenic impurities, and even some stuff
Yeah.
about psychedelics.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, like, wait, don't tell me.
I was going to say that.
Meets Radiolab.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it. All right, so round one, this is name that impurity.
Okay.
Try and guess
Okay.
what this is based on the description. It's like a tiny chemical villain,
Mm-hmm.
so small it can slip past quality control, and it can mess with your DNA.
Oh, God.
So this is,
Scary.
yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
This substance can form from common ingredients like nitrites, you've heard of those,
Yeah.
but they can react with compounds in medications like during manufacturing or storage, and then they create nitrosamines.
And they've been found in everything from blood pressure meds to heartburn relievers.
Exactly. So, listener, based on those clues, can you guess what this little gremlin is? This unwelcome guest?
In your medicine cabinet?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of seconds.
Take your time.
Okay, I think that's long enough.
I'll give you one more hint.
Oh.
These tiny troublemakers,
Mm-hmm.
they're a major headache for the FDA because even just trace amounts
Yeah,
could have serious consequences.
especially with long-term use.
Right.
Okay, did you get it?
What is it?
The answer is nitrosamines.
Nitrosamines, yeah. They're not just a theoretical problem either.
Right.
Remember that massive recall of blood pressure medications a few years back?
Yeah.
Nitrosamines.
It's kind of like finding out that there's a monster in your closet,
Right.
but instead of roaring, it's just silently messing with your cells.
Oh, my goodness.
So what does this all mean for you?
Right.
Well, the FDA is working to
Yeah.
identify and mitigate these risks.
Yeah.
But it also highlights the fact that drug development is complex,
Yes.
and it's really important to do research
Wow.
and to be vigilant. All right, round two. Regulation rodeo.
Ooh.
Hold on to your hats, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a true or false for you.
Okay.
The FDA has guidelines
Okay.
for even the tiniest impurities in drug products, even if they're not directly harmful.
Wow.
True or false?
That's a good question.
Remember all those scientific terms?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The FDA takes those very seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the final answer?
Yeah.
The answer is true.
Wow.
The FDA does not mess around when it comes to drug purity. They've got guidelines about impurities that might not be harmful on their own,
Right.
but they could interact with other substances
Oh.
and they become dangerous.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or they could degrade over time and then become dangerous. So those guidelines aren't just red tape.
Yeah.
They're there to protect you.
That makes me feel a lot better.
It's all about safety and effectiveness.
Yeah.
All right, round three. This is psychedelic surprise.
Ooh.
We're going to be looking at some mind-bending substances that are making a comeback in medicine.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, me too. So here's the surprising fact
Okay.
from a podcast on psychedelics.
Right.
They're not just being studied to treat mental health conditions, but they're also being studied to help people confront their fear of death.
That is pretty wild.
What do you think about that?
I think it's fascinating, this
Yeah.
research, and it really touches on just the core of the human experience,
Yeah.
mortality consciousness.
Right.
It's making me think about,
Yeah.
the nature of reality
Yeah.
and our place in everything.
Yeah. It's like these substances are cracking open a door to a whole new realm of understanding, not just for people who are, facing their mortality, but also for scientists who are trying to explore the human mind.
I can see that.
It makes me think about those ethical implications, though.
Right. It's like, are we playing God a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think, listener?
Yeah, what do you think about this?
What does this fact make you think about the future of psychedelic therapy? Are we on the verge of some kind of revolution in mental health?
Yeah. Or end-of-life care, even.
Or we're opening Pandora's box?
Right.
Keep those questions in mind. We're going to come back to them later. But for now, we're going to take a break.
Sounds good. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about all those big questions about psychedelics and
No.
how they might change how we think about life and death.
Mm-hmm.
But let's shift gears a little bit and look at the process of how drugs are actually made.
Okay.
From the lab to your medicine cabinet.
Yeah, how do they get there?
It's a pretty long journey.
Really?
Yeah, it's not as simple as mixing chemicals in a beaker and calling it a day.
Right.
It takes years.
Years.
Years of research, tons of testing,
Oh, wow.
and a lot of regulatory scrutiny.
So like an obstacle course for molecules.
Yeah, pretty much. And only the most promising ones actually make it to the finish line.
Okay, so let's break it down.
Okay.
It all starts with an idea, right? Like a spark
A spark of scientific ingenuity
that leads to discovering a new drug.
that could target a specific disease
Right.
or condition.
But that's just the beginning, right?
Oh, yeah, that's just the start.
What happens after that?
Well, most promising molecules,
Okay.
they never actually make it past the first stages.
Really?
Yeah.
So all that research and all those experiments can just lead to
A dead end.
a dead end.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
those failures,
Mhm.
they're actually valuable.
How so?
They help us learn and they lead to breakthroughs down the road.
So what if you do have that miracle molecule?
Mm-hmm.
Like it actually shows promise in the lab.
Well, then you need to do something called preclinical studies.
Oh, what's that?
You test the drug on animals
Okay.
and you assess its safety,
Mhm.
how it works, and how it's processed by the body.
So you're putting it through boot camp.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To see if it's got what it takes to make it to the next level.
And then what?
Well, you get a lot of data,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got to report it all to the FDA.
Right, the FDA.
Mm-hmm.
They're like the gatekeepers.
Yeah, they make sure that any new drug that comes out is safe
Mm-hmm.
and effective.
So you just submit the data and hope for the best.
It's a little more complicated than that.
Oh,
You have to file something called an IND,
an IND.
an investigational new drug application.
Okay.
And this outlines your plan
Okay.
for clinical trials.
Oh, clinical trials. This is where you finally get to test it in humans, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Are those difficult to do?
Oh, they can be. They're very expensive,
I bet.
time-consuming,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot can go wrong.
Right, because you're dealing with people.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility.
Okay, pop quiz.
Right.
How many phases are there in a typical clinical trial?
Mm.
More than 3.
Oh,
And each one has a specific purpose.
okay.
All right, what do you think?
I'm going to say 4.
That's right, 4.
Okay.
So phase 1 focuses on safety.
Mm-hmm.
Phase 2 looks at effectiveness
Mm-hmm.
in a larger group.
Gotcha.
Phase 3
Mm-hmm.
involves thousands of people,
Oh, wow.
and it's designed to confirm that it's effective in all sorts of people
Mm-hmm.
and to make sure that there aren't any long-term side effects.
Okay.
And then
Then what?
if your drug makes it through all that,
Mm-hmm.
you can submit an NDA,
An NDA.
a new drug
To
application
the FDA.
to the FDA.
Okay.
And this is basically like your graduation ceremony.
Okay.
After years of work,
Mm-hmm.
you finally made it.
What happens then?
Well, then the FDA gets to work.
Oh, boy.
They look at all the data.
They scrutinize it, right?
They're a tough crowd,
I bet.
but for good reason.
Yeah, of course.
They want to make sure everything is safe.
That makes sense.
So what if they're not convinced?
Hmm.
What if the FDA isn't happy?
Well, they'll send you back to the drawing board.
Really?
Or they might give you a CRL.
What's the CRL?
It's a complete response letter,
Oh,
and it just outlines any problems with your application,
okay.
and then you have a chance to fix it and resubmit.
So it's like a dialogue
Yeah, exactly. It's a back and forth between you and the FDA.
to make sure everything is good.
Mm-hmm.
But even if it's approved,
Mm-hmm.
it's not over.
Right.
There's still post-market surveillance.
What's that?
They watch to see if there are any long-term effects.
Oh, that makes sense.
So the FDA's job isn't over when the drug hits the shelves.
No, not at all.
They keep watching.
Mhm.
They can ask for more studies.
Uh-huh.
They can issue warnings
Mm-hmm.
or even take the drug off the market
If there's a problem.
if there's a serious problem.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a constant feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
Always learning,
Learning and refining
always refining
to make sure everything stays safe.
to make sure the medications are safe
Mm.
and effective.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to the quiz show. Let's test your knowledge on stability testing.
Okay.
This is really important
Yeah.
to make sure that drugs remain,
Safe and effective.
over time. It's like the unsung hero
I like that.
of pharmaceutical science.
Yeah.
So true or false?
Okay.
Stability testing
Mm-hmm.
involves putting a drug through a bunch of extreme conditions,
Like what?
like really high temperatures,
Okay.
humidity, and light
Wow, that's tough.
to see how it holds up.
That makes sense, though.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if it can handle it.
All right, what's your final answer?
I think I'm going to say true.
That's right, true.
Nice.
It's like putting it through a gauntlet.
Uh-huh.
And they look at not just the drug itself, but also the packaging.
Yeah.
Everything.
Make sure nothing goes wrong.
Yeah. And that expiration date, that's not just random.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on all that data.
Mm-hmm.
So the next time you check that expiration date,
Yeah.
you'll know that it's backed by science.
By a lot of science.
By a lot of science.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to name that impurity.
Okay, I'm ready.
This time we're going beyond nitrosamines. We're going to look at mutagenic impurities.
Mutagenic impurities, those are the ones that can mess with your DNA, right?
Yeah.
Yikes.
This time, instead of naming a specific impurity, I want you to tell me what kind of testing would be needed to find and control these things.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
All right, here's the scenario.
Okay.
A company is about to make a breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a new drug that could change everything.
Okay.
But there's a catch.
Uh-oh.
The way they make the drug uses a reagent.
A reagent.
Yeah, a chemical ingredient.
Okay.
That's potentially mutagenic.
Not good.
Yeah, not good.
So what do they do?
That's the question. What kind of testing do they need to do? I'll give you a hint. It involves bacteria
Bacteria.
and a test that's been around for a long time.
Okay.
It's like a bacterial detective.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay, time's up. Did you get it?
I'm going to guess the Ames test.
That's right.
I knew it.
The Ames test is used to see if something is mutagenic. It's a simple test, but it works really well. So this company would need to do a risk assessment to see how likely it is that this reagent will end up in the final drug.
Okay.
And if it's too risky, they have to change how they make it.
Right.
And of course, they'd have to do the Ames test to make sure everything is safe.
Makes sense.
So that was your crash course in mutagenic impurity testing.
Very informative.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Okay, before we move on to our final round, let's recap what we've learned so far.
Okay.
We've looked at impurities from nitrosamines to mutagenic compounds. We've looked at how drugs are developed from preclinical studies to clinical trials.
Yeah.
And we even looked at psychedelics
Yeah.
and how they're changing how we think about the human mind.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. But our deep dive isn't over yet. We've got one more round to go.
Awesome.
And this one is all about the future of pharmaceuticals.
Ooh, exciting.
So stay tuned. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've come a long way, haven't we? From those tiny little impurities to psychedelics. Now it's time to look ahead.
To the future, what's next for pharmaceuticals?
What if I told you that artificial intelligence is being used to design new drugs?
AI to design drugs. That sounds like science fiction.
I know, right? But it's happening. They're using these really complex algorithms to analyze huge amounts of data.
Okay.
And they're using it to identify targets for drugs.
Wow.
And even to predict how a drug will behave in the body.
So it's like having a super smart scientist working all the time.
Yeah, like a superpowered research assistant. And this could really change how we develop drugs.
It could make it faster.
Faster, cheaper.
And maybe even lead to better treatments.
Exactly. But of course, there are some things to think about.
Right. Like what?
Like who gets to use this technology? And how do we make sure it's used ethically?
Those are good questions.
These are big questions for society. Speaking of big questions, what about personalized medicine?
Oh, personalized medicine. That's where treatments are tailored to each person.
Right, like their genes and their lifestyle.
It's like having a custom-made suit, but for your health.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Imagine doctors could prescribe the perfect medication just for you, maximizing its effect, minimizing side effects. And we're already seeing this in cancer treatment.
Right, with genetic testing.
And researchers are looking at how to use it for other diseases too.
Like heart disease or Alzheimer's.
Yeah, or even mental health conditions.
So many possibilities.
But there's some challenges too.
Like what?
How do we make sure everyone has access?
That's important.
And how do we protect patient privacy?
That's a big one.
Especially with all this data collection going on.
Right.
We need to be careful. But the potential is huge.
Yeah, it could really change healthcare.
Make it more individualized. No more one size fits all.
Exactly.
Well, listener, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of pharmaceuticals.
Wow, that was a journey.
We've looked at the science, the regulations, and the future.
It's amazing how much goes on behind the scenes.
It really is. We hope this deep dive has made you curious and that you have more questions than answers.
Because that's what learning is all about, right?
Exactly. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking questions.
And keep listening to The Deep Dive.
Thanks for joining us.